Hi, my name is Bob and I'm renovating this 1973 Egg Harbor Sportfish boat. Hi everyone, we are at a undisclosed location. Well, people who know me know the location, but anyways, in this episode I'm going to install the cockpit frame pieces that I fabricated and fit up in the last episode. So I hope you enjoy it. And now today I'm going to remove this whole piece, the entire support, and prepare it to install it. Well, today is August 25th, 2019. It's kind of windy outside, so you're going to probably hear some background noise. Try to speak up while I'm doing this. But yesterday, you saw me remove this piece of support that I had fitted in here. And that's about as far as I filmed, because the rest of it was just preparing the fiberglass for the installation today and doing some epoxying. So I'll describe what I did. Now, over in the corner here, this is on both corners, I sanded down the fiberglass to prepare it because I'm going to be attaching to it. In the center over here as well, and on that end. And then while I was epoxying the back side of the support in this area where it doesn't attach to anything, I'm never going to get to it again, so I might as well epoxy it. That was the only time I could do it. I also put three coats of epoxy on these side supports. Now I'll show all these pieces in a little closer camera angle in a second, but just to give you an idea. So today's plan is to install this support with epoxy and screws, and that'll be good. That'll be a big step in getting everything reframed back here. The only thing I have to do is in the corners, in the tops of the support pieces here in the corner, you got to sand that down because the piece is going to rest on that. So I'll sand down the epoxy I put on there yesterday, and then we'll get going. So these are the side supports for the floor beams. This is the starboard side here. Now these are the pieces I epoxied yesterday with 3 coats of epoxy. And it was a tedious job. I didn't bother filming any of it. So it was about 3 hours or more of just sitting around watching epoxy dry. Didn't think it was worth filming. I do have to, like I said, sand some stuff in the corner right here. I'll probably sand out to about here because I had 2 layers of supports that I'm going to be putting on eventually. Epoxy as many things as I can at once. That way I'm only using 1 brush per coat because I don't save the brushes. They're pretty much shot when you're done. Okay, so we're just about ready to install this piece. I've sanded the back edge all the way where it's going to be attached. Sanded these little corners here because I think I'm going to put epoxy in to fill this gap between this corner and the curved piece on the transom, just because I'm worried about water getting in or coming down and getting back here. So I think I'm just going to fill that up. I put all the screws in, makes it so I don't have to put the screws in when I'm fumbling around trying to get it in. I stick them out just a little bit, but it helps lining things up, makes it so the epoxy doesn't just ooze through all the holes when I'm trying to put it on. So I like to get them in. I always do that, just so I can minimize the mess and time fumbling around. When you're doing it yourself, you gotta think of things like that, and usually those ideas come to you after you did it the wrong way. I will have to fill this little area here where I did a little miscut when I was cutting the top. So I'll fill that with some thickened epoxy when I'm mixing up the thickened epoxy to put on the piece. Well, I won't put it on the piece. When I put it on the transom, that's the other thing. I'm going to mix up the thickened epoxy. I'll wet all this stuff out with unthickened epoxy, and then I'll mix up the thickened epoxy, and I'll apply the thickened epoxy back here on the area that I'm actually going to attach it to. Just makes sense. I've got a couple of lines drawn where the outside edges, so I know where to put the epoxy. I've got everything sanded in the corners and everywhere, so I'm just about ready to go. I just have to remove this piece of plywood, temporary piece of plywood. Just building up my courage and making sure I didn't forget anything before I start. Struggling a little bit in the middle right here. I couldn't get it centered. It wasn't centering up, and then the drill, which worked great before, didn't work good this time because I had installed this piece of wood just for the temporary step, and it was in the way. So I had to run and get my 90-degree angle drill and struggle and get that. But finally got it in. Now I just got to clean up all the epoxy here and yeah. Keep it running, but that's where I'm at. Well, it's Monday, and just finished sanding down this piece I put in yesterday, and top and bottom and all around, just to kind of prep it a little bit. I'm going to be trying to fit up the next piece that goes right on this one. It's going to look the same as this one. Well, here we are the next day. I started fitting this second piece here. Didn't really film it because it was a lot of thinking and staring at it, and doesn't make for great video. But what I did before I started doing anything is I marked, if you can see, maybe this one's a little darker, here's one, marked where the screws were in this back piece, so to make sure I didn't screw into them. Now I don't mind being really close, like here, to these. The closer the better, so then I'm not dealing with like landmines trying to find a place to screw the plywood down into this stuff later. So the closer I am, the better, I think. But anyways, I'm spacing them out about 8 inches, I think, on this piece. Got my center line in now. You'll notice by that center line that this whole piece of plywood is not really centered on the boat. It's just they didn't put it in the center. I don't know why, but I think, I don't know, it's just the way it is. And you can tell by the light coming in, it's not centered, but the light's centered on the transom. So, anyways, something to know. So I'm just going to go along and do all these screws from here over, both sides today. That's all I'm probably going to get done today, and then I'll take a little video to check it out and document it. But probably not going to film it. It's just laying out the screws and screwing them in for now, but I'll film installing it when that day comes. So that's it for today. So I got this whole piece on actually 2 days ago. I didn't come over here yesterday, it was pouring rain, but I left it on there. It'll probably retain some of its bend, make it a little bit easier to install, I guess. So today I'm going to take it off. You can see in the corner here, once I get it off, I'm actually going to trim off this corner so it just looks a little better. I don't really have to, but I'll do that.
Next level. Next level.
Well, here it is Saturday morning, and today's task is going to be, well, the first task is going to be to install the second piece of support on the transom for the cockpit deck. So I got to epoxy the back of that side just to wet it out. When I mix up the epoxy, I'm going to have to wet out this piece as well, just the face of it here. And I'm also going to get some thickened epoxy and fill all these just before I do it, just so there's no voids in there. So I'll just run along and just put some thickened epoxy on there, and then I'll have to mix up some thickened epoxy to spread all along this whole area here. That's all together, everything's cleaned up. So the next thing I'm going to do is take all these plugs out of these pieces of wood. I got a couple more of these, and then once those are out, I'll plug all these holes. I want this to set up and dry a little bit, that way when I'm tapping on it, epoxy isn't like spewing out of the seam. So I'll just sit and wait and mess around with those plugs and then get back to plugging those holes. That might be it for today on the on this part anyways. I did manage to get all the plugs into those screw holes yesterday before I left, so I'll show you that. And yeah, and after that, the plan for today really is to just knock off all those plugs, get that piece sanded, and probably try to get 3 coats of epoxy on there. Alright, so here we go. You can see pieces all in, second layer. I've got all the plugs in there, and they've dried overnight, so I'm going to chisel all these off. It's about 32 of them. So I thought I'd show you guys everything after I sanded it. Now you can clearly see that I made no attempt to match the plugs to the wood. I just made these plugs out of whatever scrap wood I had, and that was good enough for this. It's not going to be seen, but it is all consistent. They're all lighter, so I guess it's not too bad, but you're never going to see this stuff. So now I got to do 3 coats of epoxy on there. Okay, it's Labor Day, Monday, September 2nd, 2019. What we did here yesterday was, I didn't film it because I didn't think it was too exciting. It wasn't exciting for me, that's for sure. But I got all these plugs chiseled down, and then I put 3 coats of epoxy on the entire piece. So the piece is actually pretty much done. You see it there? Came out nice. I'll show you up underneath it, maybe. So that's that. Now today I'm thinking of a couple things. One thing I want to do at some point is tackle this mess. You can see how that fiberglass down the bottom there is all buckled and weird. They didn't do a very good job on it. So I want to cut that off and re-fiberglass all the way up from here all the way down into that bottom piece. I'm not sure if I can do it once I have, well, I can always do it, but I don't know if I could do it easily with this beam, and then there's going to be another beam, and then the whole thing covered with plywood, which will be permanently installed. So one of the things I want to do today actually is take the second beam that's not there right now and put it in, and get all the tops of these, will be these 3 pieces, all in a nice plane, because they're probably a little off right now. So I'm going to do that, but to do that I want to actually take and pull this stair out of here for a second and kind of check the room underneath it to see if I can get to that fiberglass. If I can get to that fiberglass without too much problem with all these pieces in, then I'll wait and do it when all those pieces are in, because getting these pieces in, is these beams in, it's kind of what my goal is going to be this year. So this is great news. I took the stair out and everything else around it, and yeah, there's plenty of access. Now you can really see the issue here with the fiberglass. Kind of just didn't really go into the corner, I think, like they intended it to do. So I gotta remove all that and redo it. But there's plenty of access in here for me. You know, here's the piece. I got plenty of room to work in here and do that. I'd rather. You can see it's all greasy still from the oil and everything that was sitting in here, so it really needs a good scrubbing, degreasing, and I really don't want to get into that right now. I'd rather do that in the fall, and then I mean when it's really cool out, and I could wear long pants and a long sleeve shirt to cut this fiberglass and grind it and all that stuff. Alright, we'll give you a little bit of an update here. Labor Day. We've got all the beams kind of set in their right spot now in the back. I made these temporary supports for the side pieces. So I removed my little supports here that were holding it up on the end here. Just because I had to pull this beam out and put that one in, and also realign this entire stair and all the pieces that go along with it, meaning all the clamping and all this kind of stuff, because this piece here is right in the right spot to hold this beam in place, you know, the right distance. This beam right here actually is a little bit warped this way, so it's this piece of blocking right here is actually pushing it that way, so it has the same spacing all the way down, which is fine. I mean, that's okay. I'm going to put a piece here anyways, and a piece right here, so just because this is where my plywood's going to end. This is the center line of the boat. So anyways, I'm going to put another one there eventually too, and clean up this one. But yeah, so I put all that stuff in there, so everything's kind of aligned and right where it's going to be. I also got all the tops of these beams. Let's grab a straight edge here. All these pieces are all in the same plane now, all the way down. So I got that straightened out, which was a little bit of sanding, hand sanding, but it worked. Yeah, so everything's set and ready to go. So the next thing is going to be to put these pieces of spacers right in here. They're going to go along probably, you know, the 15 inches. Probably start right here and go all the way to the end. And that's where there'll be a piece of plywood attached to the bottom of them. They'll go and run along right here, 1.5 inches wide. And that'll form the plenum for the exhaust blower that's right here, and blows up and then shoots the exhaust up and out this vent. There'll be one on both sides. So that'll be what holds these beams apart. There's not going to be any cross pieces. It'll just be that. There'll be one cross piece probably right here, right where it starts, and then it'll just be the other pieces. So anyways, I gotta start messing with those. I cut the rough pieces yesterday, and yeah, so that's what we got going on here, and let's keep moving. Well, once again, that ends an episode. Hope you enjoyed that episode, and come back for the next one. So until then, have a good one, and we'll see you really soon right here on Renovation Sportfish.